Hey loves, I am back and this time we are doing makeup. Yes, your girl is going to beat this face. And if you want to see how I did that with this pop of red lip color, please stay tuned. So here's my darling model, and we just completed this sew-in. So we're now going to add just a little light beat to her face, something very professional that she can wear to work. She is a nurse practitioner, so she actually doesn't need to be over the top, but she does like to have her face pop in a very professional look. I just sprayed her with some primer. I love it. It's by e.l.f. And I'm just dabbing the excess in. You can do this as opposed to the ones that you have to put on your hand and rub in. Either one does fine. I just happen to love this. I try not to put my fingers on people's faces as much as possible. So now I'm going in with my brow pencil. She usually gets her eyebrows razored at the barbershop. So she had a few hairs out of place. I'm just going to pencil in just to kind of make them look freshly arched, though they weren't. And then this is actually some mascara. It's in the color brown. I'll have the brand in the description bar. I don't remember what it was right off the top of my head, but I love using that. It keeps the hair brushed in the way that I like, and it also gives it a little bit of a tint as well. Now I'm going in with my concealer, and I'm just lightly going up under the brow. Again, I'm trying to clean up the area that needs to be waxed or tweezed. And I'm going to just do this on both sides. And I try to get a shade not too much lighter than the actual skin complexion, because then you spend a whole lot of time trying to blend it in. So something maybe 1 or 2 shades lighter than the natural skin tone. Carve out the top just a tad bit. Again, we want her to look like she's wearing makeup, but not like she's going to prom or to a very formal event. We just want it to look nice and natural, so I try not to over accentuate the brows. So I'm just now taking my brush, a little fluffer brush, and I'm just going to go ahead and blend that out. And I have a little bit of powder on the end, and that is just so that it mattes on me and doesn't crease. Now, I forgot to explain that all the brushes that I'm using are her brushes. The whole gist of this was to kind of show her how to use what she already has, as opposed to giving her all these different brushes to go out there and buy. And she has actually a lot of brushes, so it's really just about knowing which brush to use for which purpose. The primer, the spray primer, was my own. There'll be a few things of my own that I actually use, but for the most part, the brushes are hers. And the foundation will be hers. Some of the concealers and the creams that I use for contouring are my own. So now I'm using a primer base for her eyelids. This is just to help give the lids a little bit more pop. It helps the color stick a little bit better, especially if you're not using a really vibrant color. I'm going to be using more neutral shades, a soft lavender, so this will help that to stick and cancel out any darkness on her eyelid that might protrude through the color. So now I'm going in with just a little bit of Ben Nye powder. Sometimes I use it as my transition when I really don't want a shade there, because the shade that I'm using is going to be really light. So I use my Ben Nye powder, or should I say hers, and I'm just dabbing it in there right before I add the lavender color. Okay, here's some eyeshadow. I believe she got this from Lancome. No, Estee Lauder. Sorry, Michael Kors. And this is a deep purple. It's not as dark as I would like, but it is good enough to give me a little 3-dimension in that crease area. So I'm just gonna plug that in on both sides, and then later on I'll go in and deepen it with some shades that I have of my own. Now I'm making sure to get this just in the V area. Again, I'm just trying to give some dimension to her eyes. Nothing very dramatic, more so kind of soft, but again, we don't want the lids to look flat. Now I'm going in with the lighter shade from that same palette, and this is the lavender that I was speaking of. It is a really gorgeous color. I wish the lighting was better in the salon, but it isn't. My apologies. In the future, I will use my ring light. But this color is gorgeous. It's very soft, but it has a little light shimmer to it. I love it. And it's not too loud. Sometimes when you use just a silver across the top, which people tend to do, I think, to open their eyes, it tends to be a little much. Then I'm going in with this Lancome, a lighter shade, and I'm just going to put that just on the ball of her eye because I want to bring light right there. So just right there in the center, I'm just going to dab that in. Now this is a color palette of my own. I love the shades that are in it. They're very opaque, very true to the color, so I try not to be too heavy with it because I don't know if you can tell here, but it does not take much. And I'm just going in to deepen that purple that was in her corner V. And I'm using a purple and a blue together because I don't want it too blue. I just really want a deep purple there. Now I am using liquid liner, and I'm using this flat tip brush. Sometimes I use the very thin brush. I forgot the name of that brush, but I'm using the flat tip brush so that it'll actually go on a lot more smoother, and I can do just one strip across as opposed to having to paint it over and over again to thicken the line. And this is very, very easy when you're trying to create a wing, but you're not that good at it. This brush makes it a lot easier. So now I'm going underneath with a black liner. Usually, depending on the complexion of my client, I determine whether to use black or to use brown. Black was going to be better in this particular case because it would help to define her eyes, but it wouldn't have been too harsh. I didn't add any eyeshadow underneath because she actually has contacts in, and so she definitely was concerned about maybe it getting in and irritating her eyes. So I'm color correcting now right up underneath her eyes. I usually like doing this right after I've applied any eye makeup as opposed to before. It just helps to cover any fallout that I may have had. Oh my gosh, while editing this video, I was laughing at her so much. I was like, you're giving me all the mouth and face that you usually do when you do your own makeup. So you could tell it just kind of comes natural for her. So she was just moving and twisting even when I didn't need her to. Funny stuff. Okay, so there's usually a little trick that I do when I'm teaching clients to put on makeup without looking like they're trying to beat their face. They just want to have a natural glow. So right after I color correct, I go in with my concealer, and this is all before applying foundation, and I neutralize that under eye or wherever I choose to put the color corrector. And I usually tell them to do this because sometimes when they put their foundation, they haven't blended the color corrector in good, so they end up looking orangey under their foundation. And then they find themselves putting more concealer to hide that, and then it ends up just being a mess. So I usually tell them just go ahead and neutralize it out from the beginning before you put your foundation. And usually what happens is when they apply their foundation, they'll automatically be a little bit brighter under the eye. I usually like highlighting for more evening or more specific events that you're going to, but again, when you're just going to work, you got 20 minutes to spare, it actually would do you a great more service if you decided to contour. So I'm just going to go ahead and dab this in with the sponge, and this is her foundation. It is 355 by I want to say Maybelline, L'Oreal. I think it's Maybelline. I'll have that listed in the description box as well. But usually what I do, I use this brand a lot, and I'll get several shades and mix them together so that I can get very, very close to your natural shade. In her case, I didn't have to as much. I thought that it matched really, really well, so I did not mix hers. I used it straight out of the bottle. Now, I got a little carried away. I was so busy talking to her, I didn't realize how high I came up on the foundation. Usually, if I do the concealer before the foundation, I don't come as high up. If you can tell from the left side that I did, you can still see how light it is. And then on her right side, it's a little bit more toned under the eye. And again, that was me coming up a little too high with the foundation. But it'll all blend out once I blend everything in and I set it with a lighter powder. It'll still work. And so I'm making certain to get around that jawline. You want to make certain that that is all blended. That is key. And then I like to use the foundation to go up under and actually clean up under the eyes on the side. I usually use a concealer to do that as well. I don't tape it or anything like that. And I'm being gentle right around that side right there. She had a tooth pull, or I think a root canal, so it was really tender. So if you see me slow down in that area, that's why. So this is after it's fully blended. I'm going in now with some midnight powder right up under her lid. And I'm using the lighter shade, and I'm just going to use it where I want it to be a little lighter. And she's already enjoying it, obviously. So I'm just setting that up under there. And as you notice, I did not use a whole lot because, again, this is day wear. This is for her to be able to wear to work. And then I'm going in with the concealer, and I'm just going to highlight down the bridge of her nose and her forehead just a tad. I'm also going to do a little bit of her Cupid's bow and just her chin. And there she goes, shifting again, so you notice it's kind of off angle. Funny. Sorry about my hand being in the way. Totally forget about the camera sometimes. But I'm going in now with this cream concealer, and I am contouring out her nose. And this is a dual case. It actually has a lighter and darker brown. And that is by Kiss. So I'm using that just down the bridge of her nose, and I'll also use a little bit in between her Cupid's bow. I like to make that area a little darker. It just kind of deepens and it allows the lips to look a little more perkier. Now I'm just blending out the concealer down the bridge of her nose, the center of her forehead, her Cupid's bow, and then also her chin. I'm using a little of the midnight powder to set the concealer. I hate that my hand stays in the way. I'm so sorry about this, guys. So this is a dual contour stick that she has. I think it's darker on one end and lighter on the other. She asked me about using this down the bridge of her nose, and I told her no, it was a little too harsh. But this is great for contouring around her forehead and around her cheek and jawline. It'll also give a more narrowing effect once she goes in and blends. Okay, so with her angle brush, I'm going in and I'm blending it out, and I'm kind of doing a swish swash back and forth stroke, and then I'll brush it up as you see me doing here to blend it into her cheek. But I like to keep the strokes kind of narrow. So this is the reason I kind of go back and forth, and then on the lower I brush it down towards the neck just to blend it out. Now on her forehead I do a little differently. So once I actually go back and forth with it and blend it out, then I kind of do a little bit of a circular like motion, and this is just to blend it in to her highlighted area. And then I'm just pinching that brush and I'm just going in to blend that cream that was still on the sides of her nose. And now I'm setting with powder. And you want to be subtle with your powder so that it's not really hard to blend out. In fact, you're just setting the cream contour that you put in place. So I'm going to go in with her mascara. She had really long lashes, so there was no need for falsies. And during the work week, some people tend to not want to do falsies. So this is definitely a great way to define the eye without really being over the top. And I'm going to put it on her upper, and we're going to try to get a little bit on her lower lash. Okay, so now I'm choosing a smaller brush to go in and set the contour around her nose. Sometimes if you use a brush that's too wide, it'll actually get into your highlighted area and then it'll look all muddy or it won't be as defined. So in this instance, I definitely suggest using a smaller brush. And I'm creating just a little bit of a V on the tip of her nose that kind of brings the nose in. I am now setting the entire face with her face powder. And I'm just lightly dabbing that in, and I'm actually putting it or concentrating more on the areas where the highlight meets the contour and blending those out so there isn't any harsh lines. Now I'm adding her blush just lightly. I know she doesn't particularly do blush, but I told her definitely want to rosy your cheeks, kind of bring some warmth back after you've contoured and highlighted. And that's the shade that I'm using, and this is a quad palette. Then I'm adding a little bit of lip liner. We just kind of used what she had. Typically, I probably would have done something a little bit more nude, something kind of to cancel her lip color out. But we went with this, and I did kind of like an ombre lip, and then shortly after that we went in and did a red, and that pop of red was everything, and you'll see that in just a little bit. So I'm filling her in, and again, these are items that she has at home, so I wanted to make certain that I educate her on how to properly use them when she's at home, so that it makes the makeup process a lot easier. Once you know what you have and what you need to use it for, the process is a lot quicker than when you spend time trying to figure it out. And there she goes helping me again with her lips. Funny. I'm like, this lipstick is gonna be all over if you don't stop. I didn't realize how much face she was giving me in the camera when I wasn't looking. Funny. So right now I'm just dabbing a little bit of color in the center of her lip, and she's gonna blend that out. And I'm just using this stick of this brush. Usually I use a clear to blend it, but she didn't have any clear gloss at the time. So we did the best that we could with this. And overall I liked it. She wasn't a fan of it. She preferred her red, so I was like, okay, cool. We'll take pictures with the nude, and then we'll go ahead and do the pop of red. Picture gives it no justice, but overall it was a beautiful look. This is it, and then this is her with that red lip. Yes, that red lip is everything. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it's something that you can do at home right before work, or maybe even before date night. If you want to see much more of this to come, please rate, like, and subscribe.